Gonzaga, Creighton on campus. I love a good non-con on campus game. We just got one yesterday with Michigan State, Arkansas. I also count MSG as on campus for St. John's. Um, so we also got that with St. John's, Alabama. Those games are just special. It feels like there's a little bit more juice behind them from time to time. I'm with Connor. My name's Dion. Welcome back to the channel, everybody. Connor, you're a resident Gonzaga fan. You have a pulse on this team that I don't think anybody else on the channel has. Phenomenal performance against Oklahoma yesterday, dominated start to finish. What did you see from that team yesterday? What do you think carries over against Creighton, and how are you feeling going into the game?
This team's defense is insane. I went in after the game yesterday, and it's a very small sample size. Um, but Gonzaga has a top five defense by adjusted efficiency if you get rid of um, the preseason bias on Torvik. Um, it's one of those teams where like they start Braden Smith, they start Emmanuel Innocenti, they start Adam Miller. Um, But oh yeah, their best lineup comes off the bench. Like when they put in Mario St. Superi, Jalen Warley, and Tyon Grant Foster, teams just lose. Like like legitimately, they just both Tyon Grant Foster and Mario St. Superi, yesterday specifically, you could tell that they're still adjusting to the speed of Gonzaga's offense, like how fast they transition from defense to offense. But Tyon Grant Foster was incredible. He was rebounding. He was dunking on people. Um, he finished a lob from Mario. He was playing good defense. Jalen Warley is an incredible defender. Even Mario Saint-Superi, whose defense wasn't his big calling card when he was playing in Spain, like he was generating turnovers. He got, I think, three steals in this game, which led to buckets. So, or one he got out over his skis and kicked the ball out of bounds, but the other two led to buckets. Um, Graham Ike is Graham Ike.
Yeah,
He shows his emotion. He had a tech that I think was a little soft.
super soft, super soft,
Super soft.
super
It
soft,
wasn't like Braden Huff. Both their bigs have had techs in the last two games, but his was I think particularly soft.
super soft. You gotta
But
let people have fun.
yeah, but you get like it's crazy because you get Graham Ek in the post, and you force and when Braden Huff's on the floor, you force the defense to allow Graham Ike to work one on one against a defender that's likely weaker than him, or you double him and then you're forcing a guard to take Braden Huff, or you're defending Braden Huff and all of a sudden Grant Foster or Jalen Warley are putting rim pressure on. And Graham Ike has shown the past two games that he's a good passer of the ball. Like he's looking for those cutters. He's looking for those bigs down low to try and get an easier shot. Um, 3-point shooting still is seemingly an issue. Adam Miller and Steel Venters in particular have not been hitting their shots like you would want them to. But when you're dominating the paint, I mean, they were plus 38, I believe, in points in the paint in the first half. Um, I don't think it really matters if your 3-point shooting is, 30% versus 35% in a game, right? You over
Yeah.
the course of the season, you want it to be better, but in a game, I don't think it necessarily matters. But I think that's the story. Is like this Gonzaga team's identity is their defense. They're strong, they're long, they have athletes that they haven't had in years. Um, and the fact that again, their best trio of players when they're on the floor together come off the bench, I think speaks to the depth that Mark Few has put in place on this team where he can go defense, offense. He can go big with two bigs, or he can put Jalen Warley at the four, and all of a sudden you've got way more athleticism on this floor on the floor. Um, and I think that presents a little bit of an issue for a Creighton team who needs to be good offensively because let's face it, their defense is not going to be good this year.
I'm a Jalen Worley stan. I've been waiting for the Jalen Worley breakout for a little bit, probably a little too long, but I feel like we're here now. And I love that for us. I think the biggest difference between these two teams to me is, I mean, yes, Owen Freeman comes off the bench for Creighton, I guess. Um, but outside of him, I feel like Gonzaga has way more depth going into this game. Like they're the much deeper team. And if things, I'm a firm believer in like you have plan A, then you have plan B. What do you do when plan A doesn't work? I feel like plan B for Gonzaga is way better than what plan B for Creighton's going to be throughout this game. And it's one of those situations where like things are going to go wrong ultimately in this game, right? Like these are two very talented teams going up against each other. What are you going to do when you get punched in the mouth? Are you going to fight back? What are you going to do? I mean, I'm looking at Creighton and Jackson McAndrew. I know that's Cart's guy, uh, but like you know, he shot less than 40% from the field last year. Wasn't the greatest game one, 4 of 12. You got on the list. I love Blake Harper. I'm not sure Blake Harper's ready for like the size of the role that he's gonna have at Creighton this year. Coming from Howard, like that's a really big jump. And then you go into Spokane on the road in game two. Like that just feels like a lot for Blake Harper. Um, Overall, I just think Gonzaga is the deeper team. And I do want to say something like the country's so talented right now. Whether it's Braden Smith, TKR, Yaxel, all the returners that we have, or the millions of freshmen that like we can, continue to talk about. I think everybody forgot about Graham Ike. Straight up like that. Graham Ike is one of the best players in the country too. And I think everybody was just like, well, there's Cameron Boozer, AJ DeBonsa, Darren Peterson, Braden, Yaxel, TKR. Like the list goes on and on. And then it's like, oh yeah, like that kid in Spokane's really, really good also.
It's one of those things for me where it's kind of like Drew Timmy, but almost worse for Graham EK, where it's like Drew Timmy, it's oh you just can't let him get position on you. And you knew he was going to get position on you. Graham EK, it's like you can't let him get to his right shoulder. You just can't. You can't let him get over his right shoulder because he's a left-handed. He's always gonna be left-handed. He's gonna make those left-handed hooks. It's just gonna happen. And yet, no matter how hard you try, he's going to get to his right shoulder and he's gonna finish left-handed. And I think in this game in particular, like I'm not a Jackson McAndrew or Isaac Trout hater at all. Um, they are completely outclassed, I think, from a strength perspective, from a uh interior scoring, like paint presence perspective by the two Gonzaga bigs. Um, and I think, the wings for Creighton are probably better than the starting wings for Gonzaga. But then you get Tyon Grant Foster and Jalen Worley coming off the bench, and I think those two are better than the wings for Creighton right now. Um, I think the one area where Creighton might have the advantage is at the point guard, because I do think that Braden Smith has been disappointing at the end of the day for Gonzaga, and Mario Santuberi still has room to grow, where he can be the cause of a lot of bad possessions for Gonzaga, but that's more of a freshman thing and just getting used to the Gonzaga offense. But yeah, I mean, I I think in this game in particular, like Creighton's going to need to hit the glass because defensively, they were not getting a ton of rebounds against South Dakota State, um, or South Dakota. I want to say it was almost 50-50 on the defensive glass for Creighton. And then on the offensive glass, they got a bunch of rebounds, but they were just bigger. Um, and they only shot 31% from three. And the only reason that Oklahoma was able to keep it remotely close with Gonzaga was because they were hitting tough shots from three.
Right.
Um, and so if Creighton can't hit those shots, it's going to be tough sledding for them because I don't think that they're going to be as dominant in the paint as they were against South Dakota. Um, but we'll see, right? Greg McDermott is a good coach, um, and I'm sure he has ideas about how to attack this Gonzaga defense. But from my perspective, this is a Gonzaga team where like 2016, 2017, they might not be number one because there are incredible defenses out there, but I think they could finish the season top five in defense.
Yeah. I think it's a Gonzaga team. You know, I mentioned us forgetting about Graham Ike, right? Like I think if we looked at Graham Ike in the lens as some of the other like superstars that are out in the country, I think this is a team that's in the top 10, in the country, if not a little higher with how much talent and length they have. Like I'm looking at this Oklahoma game, like Oklahoma kept it relatively close by hitting tough shots, but also Adam Miller's never shooting 2 of 7 again, by the way. Like that's just not going to happen. That's a 40% three-point shooter. That shot below 30% in a game. Like I just think there is for as much room as like Oklahoma had to probably play better in that game, so could have Gonzaga. And I think that's like a sticking like a point to moving forward, And Creighton is a great team. I love Blake Harper, by the way. If Owen Freeman's still playing in January, I think he's great too. I really like Josh Dix. Like this is a really, really good team. I think they're going to cause a lot of issues in the Big East. I just think they're a little outclassed in this game. Um, Speaking of which, for every game we got to make picks. Let me see if the spread is out for this one. I don't believe it is. It's not. So I'm gonna make one up. Uh, this is that boy D Hill's spread of the day. I think it's gonna be relatively close. I think Creighton's good. I don't think the books are gonna have it super high. So I'm gonna say Gonzaga. I'm gonna have Gonzaga as the favorites -4.5. Do you think they cover? If so, how much do you think they cover by?
I think they cover. I mean, I think the game against Oklahoma was not as close as it ended up being. It was a 15 and it was a 15-point game where Gonzaga covered.
Right.
But it was 24 points with 8 minutes left, and Gonzaga just kind of let Oklahoma go on a 9-point run.
Right.
Um, but I I want to say this is a game that's close until like midway through the second half.
Okay.
Um, there are more guys on Gonzaga that I trust, whether it's Worley, whether it's Tyler Grant Foster. I mean, okay, any player on Gonzaga that we've seen score the ball around the rim. So Worley, Tyler Grant Foster, EK. Huff struggled against Oklahoma, but I mean, he missed bunnies. He never misses. Like those four alone, I think can just overmatch Creighton in a tight game where like rebounds are a premium, getting to the rim is a premium. Gonzaga's perimeter defense. I've always cringed like the last three or so years for Gonzaga when their guards were super aggressive on the perimeter, just trying to jump passing lanes, trying to steal the ball, playing really aggressive pressure defense. I trust them to do that this year, um, in a way that I haven't before. And so I think it'll be like a 5-point game, 6-point game, maybe like 2 to 3 possessions. In the second half, but then the Gonzaga's pressure, Gonzaga's strength, Gonzaga's aggressiveness is just going to wear down on Creighton. I don't know if it hits double digits, but I do think that it's going to like you're going to look at the end and be like, oh, Gonzaga won by 8 or 9. But it's going to be relatively high scoring, I think, probably 84 to let's call it 75 just to have an even number, an odd number, but a nice clean number there. So yeah, 84-75 Gonzaga.
I agree. I think it's relatively high scoring. I think I probably went with too low of a line. I'm not a bookmaker. I'm not Vegas. I think Gonzaga wins this game by 8 or 9 as well, if not double digits. I think Gonzaga wins 83. I'm gonna say 74. I think it's a Gonzaga team that I think can really, really score the ball at a high rate, but they also are an elite defensive team. And I think once they kind of like settle into Mark Few's system, they're going to get some even easier looks than they got against Oklahoma too. You can tell that they're still like developing chemistry together, developing chemistry within the system a lot. But like once they really settle in Tyon Graham Foster, for all the jokes I made about him this offseason, like he's kind of relentless at getting to the basket off the bench too. It felt like he had like a million layups against Oklahoma. So I just feel like they have a lot of different ways to score as a whole. A lot of length on the defense in the perimeter as well, which is going to make it really hard for the Creighton guards. Um, Overall, I just think it's a rough matchup for Creighton. A little bit outclassed, I think, in this one. But I think both teams are very good. But I'm gonna go Gonzaga 84, or excuse me, 83. Creighton 74 in a high scoring fun one. For Connor, I'm Dion. We'll have the recap up on the channel right after the game. Like, comment, subscribe.